I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. So let's first off hit it here. And I did a blog on this earlier this year, but the latest is now, I've talked about the rent increases, the NDP, last year, of course, we've always gotten by with this consumer price index plus 2%. But then, of course, last year, that was way too much to raise rents. They only gave us the inflation rate at 2.5 or 2.4 last year. Earlier this year, they said, you could raise the rent by 1.4% landlords. But now just recently, our housing minister, Selina Robinson, took that back. And now they've put a rent freeze for residential landlords. They will not be able to raise the rent until summer 2021. So the pittance that they did give landlords of 1.4% is off the table now. You cannot raise your rent. So, full disclosure, as you guys know, and there's no right or wrong to this, but this does not have any impact on me because go back and watch my blogs. I do not raise the rent on my tenants. And listen, I totally understand a lot of you, and I know in the blogs here, have started raising the rent every year by the prescribed amount, if you can. This year it's off. And that's totally fine too. But what I've often found is when I get a good tenant in there, if he stays or she stays 2 or 3 years, I'm happy and they're not bothering me, they're taking care of the place, I don't raise the rent. Because what I've often found, I've been a landlord for 34 years, eventually your tenants will leave. Maybe they stay 2, 3 years and by the time they move out, they're paying far below market rent, which they usually are. At that point, when I put the new tenant in, I'll raise the rent up $200 or $300 or $400 or whatever it is and collect it then. But I don't raise it annually. But again, there's no right or wrong. I prefer to keep good tenants. It's a lot of work to get a new tenant and screen them and run the credit checks and everything else. So when I get a good tenant, I like to keep them. But I do have lots of clients, and I read in the comment section here of my channel that many landlords want to raise it, and that can happen. If a tenant stays long enough, 5 or 6 years, let's say, and now they're paying $500 or $600 below market for sure. But the 1.4% they're giving us, well, they took off the table now, is really a pittance. It's just not worth it. So I'd rather just keep the good tenants. Eventually they leave, and then I will jack the rent up to full market rent. But I've talked about this a few times before. The NDP government just does not get it. They don't. I know that they're trying to get votes here, and let's face it, more than 50% of people in the province of BC here rent. And it's something like 60% in the city of Vancouver. So I understand, hey, we're going through COVID here and a lockdown and everything else. Give us a break. I can totally understand that, but I want people to recognize the fact that, well, at the press conference, Mrs. Robinson, I had to laugh. She announced this a few weeks ago. She said something about, we're all in this together. Well, Mrs. Robinson, we're not all in this together. You're asking the landlords here, both large institutional landlords and the individual mom and pop landlords like myself, to be in this a whole lot more than renters. Because again, I've talked about this earlier this year and the year before that. As an individual landlord, our expenses are going up far more than 1.4%. Our property taxes are going up in the city of Vancouver, double digits. Same thing in Richmond and most of the municipalities in the Lower Mainland. Our insurance rates have skyrocketed, both the Strata's insurance as well as the individual policies on these homes. They've gone up in some cases 100, 150%. Strata fees go up double digits. Everything is going up. Maintenance fees, as I said, property taxes are going up double digit. Yet the province restricts us to 1.4%, which is now taken down to 0, no raise at all until summer of 2021. So they're asking the landlords to take on a lot more of this. I mean, I've said before, the NDP I don't think really has any idea or any respect or the service that individual landlords do in this city. Let's take Vancouver, for instance. If you're looking for a good quality 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom or even something bigger like a townhouse or a detached home, your only choice is through the individual landlord. The individual landlords are providing 99% of the quality housing in this city. Up until recently, we haven't built any purposely built rentals here for 3 decades. It's all dilapidated wood frame stuff in the West End that's falling apart. Now, it's only been recently, in the last 3 or 4 years here, that we did have some newer, purposely built rental condos that have come on. A few buildings in the West End, a couple more in the downtown East Side and Chinatown, and a few more underway. But keep in mind, folks, this was all approved by Gregor Robertson and the Liberal provincial government. Now that we've got the NDP in power here, and we've got our socialist mayor, Kennedy Stewart, I can tell you that that is all gone now. Developers are not going to touch or go near any type of new rental development. It's done. So the little bit that did come online here, which was all approved 5-6 years ago, that's it. So there's not a whole lot left, and there won't be until NDP steps in and gets rid of these rental freezes. Until then, why would a developer want to go anywhere near building rental properties? They don't. They never did. The only reason they did it before some of the big developers, like Boza, built some of these is because they gave them some more density on stratified condo projects. That's the only reason they want to do it. You know, developers, I've said many times here, they want to build strata, they want to build condos, they want to pre-sell them, hand over the keys, get their money, and move on to the next project. They're not really so very interested in long-term rental holdings of 20 or 25 years before they get their money back. So keep in mind, this is going to cause this, what I've talked about many times, the coiled spring effect. You know, other than these few buildings that have come online here and the old dilapidated stuff on the West End, individual landlords here are providing 99-98% of the quality rental stock in this city. Hands down. Yet the NDP kicks them in the head at every step of the way. No respect for the individual landlord and the service they provide and the number of units they provide as far as quality rental stock in this city. So, you know, what's going to happen here? Eventually you're going to start to see, if this continues on the way the NDP and the city of Vancouver are treating individual landlords, a lot of them will eventually just say, forget it. I'll sell my unit, cash out. The new buyer, you have to realize here, may not be an investor. Chances are he probably won't be. It'll be a principal residence buyer because they still make up the majority of buyers. So there's another condo, a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom or whatever, that will be off the market. Will not be offered up for rental stock anymore. So you'll see that these rental freezes, they will have the reverse effect. It's temporary. Sure, they're going to freeze your rent. They can't raise it 1.4% for now. Big deal. But no new rental stock is going to be coming online. Remember, it's always a delayed reaction here. Nothing's going to be built here until this freeze is removed, and probably until we see more of a pro-development government here, both provincially and locally. And then even then, you're not going to turn the spigot on overnight. It's going to take 3-4 years down the road before any of this new inventory will come down line. So, you know, the NDP, I think, just doesn't get it. I know they want to, you know, it's really about buying votes, folks. But I think you're going to see what I call that coiled spring effect down the road. You're not going to see a whole lot of new development. And again, you're going to probably chase some individual landlords out of the market. They're going to sell the units, and those units will not be coming back on the rental market because majority of buyers for downtown want to live in these units. So it will squeeze supply, and you will get that coiled spring effect. And again, I don't lose sleep over this stuff. I've given up on worrying about the government, as I say, without getting too political here. You know, I always talk about every year, you know, I've got to keep the bar in my office here when I do my income taxes. You know, I pay well into 6 figures. I cut a check. And now if I include, you know, all my property taxes and the GST and the PST that I pay on a daily basis, geez, I might be looking at a couple $100,000 now. Now, listen, I've often said here, it's a nice problem to have. When you're paying that kind of tax bill, it means you're making good money, you're successful, and that's great. As I often tell people, I see people on my blog say, oh, I don't want to get into this investment or that because it's going to bump up my income and I got to pay more tax. Never look at it that way. As I've often said here, I was blessed to be born a Canadian, just like Warren Buffett always talks about being born an American. We've won the lottery there. We're born into one of the greatest countries in the world where success, there's no ceiling on it. You can work as hard or as little as you want, and when you're paying those kind of tax bills, hey, it's a good thing. But the thing that gripes me is the waste the waste that where all my money goes. It goes into the black hole known as the downtown east side. You know, I still shake my head at why we're building social housing in the most expensive real estate market in Canada and one of the most expensive real estate markets in North America. You know, as far as I know, I don't see them building social housing on Park Avenue in New York or in Bel Air in California. I've often wondered why we're not building it out on SkyTrain out in areas like Surrey. Why do we have to provide social housing in some of the most expensive real estate in Canada? I'm all for, though, subsidizing first responders, nurses, doctors, police, and giving them a deal on something downtown because they need to be here. After that, though, maybe we should be building it further out on SkyTrain. But again, I just don't think the NDP gets it. You know, you take from one area, it's going to go like a coiled spring in the other direction. But this is where we're at. Rental freeze, but again, I don't lose sleep over it because again, I've always just kept my tenants in there. I don't raise the rent on a yearly basis. It's such a pittance now anyways. And I would say that's what most investors should feel as well. Eventually your tenant will leave. They always do, especially if they're one-bedroom units or studios. Eventually your tenant gets married or gets engaged, needs a bigger place, whatever. They give you the notice and then you can mark it back up to full market rent. I'm Owen Bigland. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.